Well, despite yesterday's events, many have asked what's up with this White House and its relaxed demeanor and all the things that are going on. Joining us now, former Dukakis campaign manager and Fox News contributor Susan Estrich and Jason Rowe of Federal Strategy Group. Thank you all for joining us here. May I just do an anchor audible here, because this thing that happened yesterday at the White House sort of got me irritated a little bit. Here we are, an administration that says they're going to be transparent. And then we have incidents like this where he's getting an award from journalists and it's closed to the press. Have you ever seen anything like this, Susan?
Yes, I have occasionally, and it always fails. I mean, there's always this effort, particularly in a new White House, to think we can control the media. You know, we can set the rules. Remember when the Clintons got in trouble on some of this stuff at the very beginning with the travel office and the like? You can't do that, and I think they're stumbling along a little bit here, and I think closing that to the press yesterday was frankly just a mistake, and they're making a few of them.
This is not the only example where this has happened. Jason, any thoughts on this?
Well, you know, I've been involved in a lot of campaigns in my lifetime, and usually when I'm trying to restrict the press access to that event, that's because I don't want them to see something that's going on in there.
Oh, really?
And I just don't know what could happen at an event like that that would be so incredible that they need to keep the press from witnessing it, especially when it's in a room full of journalists.
Well, you know, I had a similar thing down in Miami, Florida, where the vice president showed up to speak to the AFL-CIO executive committee, and they allowed a few print reporters in, but they wouldn't allow TV cameras in. Now, here we are talking about perhaps one of the largest issues of our time, which has to do with this card check law, the Free Choice Act, as some call it, and this was definitely on the discussion. Everybody ought to have an access to how that discussion went, and yet TV cameras weren't allowed.
Well, you know, the funny part is they're thinking, well, if it's just written and not visual, it won't have the same impact. The truth of the matter is we're still talking about it precisely because they didn't let you in, right? So these strategies generally backfire because we only get more interested in what we're not allowed to see.
All right, let me ask you another question. A lot of it has been said about it, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. I would never beat a dead horse, or even a live horse for that matter. But the bottom line here is that a lot of discussion yesterday about this comment that the president made on the Leno show about his bowling, and he looked like a Special Olympian, and it didn't really strike the right note. No. I'll give the guy credit. Textbook response to this in trying to fix something that was about to spiral out of control, right?
Right.
What do you think about that, Jason?
Well, you know, listen, I'm not in the business of defending President Obama, Abbott, but I got to tell you, reaction to it was that a lot of people need to get thicker skins. He certainly did not mean that, nor would anybody expect that he would mean that to be malicious. And, you know, he was just trying to be funny on a late-night talk show, which might not be the best place for him to be during the current economic crisis. But, I think a lot of people are making a bigger deal of this than probably needs to be made.
Well, and that is the larger question. Right. I mean, should we, Susan, see the president filling out his NCAA basketball grid? Should we be watching the president on the Leno show on a night when, you know, many Americans are struggling for financial survivability?
Well, you know, I think strategically, if you're in the situation in the White House, you could second-guess those decisions pretty well. I mean, you could say that the Special Olympics joke is exactly the sort of way people talk on the Leno show, which is why presidents generally don't go on the Leno show. But I think he's trying to connect with people, and I think he's still, you know, it takes a new president time to sort of get his bearings and for them to get their bearings in dealing with the press.
Now, you guys are a couple of sophisticated hands about how things work in politics. And you've seen over the years where you start to get in this town calls for somebody to resign, somebody to step down. It would seem that a lot of people right now, based on this AIG bonus debacle, have their sights set on Secretary of the Treasury, Timothy Geithner. Your prediction on how that's going to resolve itself in the coming week?
Well, you know, we talked about the NCAA brackets, and President Obama had a record in the first round of 19-13, which was pretty underwhelming. And the only thing more underwhelming so far in his administration has been Geithner's performance. You know, I think that he's going to stand by him as long as he can, but already Democrats in the Senate and the House are making noise about the fact that he may have worn out his welcome. May or may not be his fault, but I just think at this point he's become more of a liability than an asset to the administration.
Susan, last word.
I think Geithner stays. I don't think they can admit that the Treasury Secretary has to go, because then the spiral goes, well, he just knew what you knew, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, do you think other people knew what was going on there, Susan?
Of course.
And you think we'll find out who that was?
I think we probably already know if we look carefully enough. I mean, how could you not know what was going on?
Got to run. Speaking of